Hello my friends, my name is Liv. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be chatting about the top 24 books I'm hoping to read in 2024. When people do these videos because I love to see what's at the top of their list going into the new year. I want to see like what their 5-star predictions are. But for my video, I decided to do my own little twist or spin on it because all of these books are on my physical TBR. Not only that, but they are all standalone books. I will be doing another video talking about the series I want to read or finish next year, but these books are just standalones. I made it harder on myself by only choosing books that I own. I basically just shopped my shelves and tried to figure out what I want to read going into the new year. I feel like most of us have the goal to read more on our physical shelves, but I am taking a more drastic measure this upcoming year because it's sad when you walk into the bookstore and all the books you want to read you realize are already on your shelves at home. So for that reason, that is why I decided to create this list and create this video. I'm hoping in the new year to create like another TBR jar, and I'm going to be ruthless this year. If I don't read a lot of these books, they are getting unhauled. So I'm very excited to dive in now and share with you my top books that I hope to get to in 2024. So I do have most of these books categorized into genre. So we're going to start out with like some romance, contemporary books, some thrillers. Most of these are fantasy, as you will probably be able to tell, but a lot of these are also like repeat authors for me. So there's another section of this video where I'm going to be talking about that because I did find some new favorite authors in 2023 and I definitely want to get to a lot of their backlist. So without further rambling, let's just go ahead and dive into the romance books, starting with After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is one of my favorite all-time romance authors, but she's also an author that really makes you think. She's a little bit more contemporary and she has some really hard-hitting topics, like I said, that really make you think and consider the way you live your own life and your own relationships, and that's what I love about her. I loved Daisy Jones and the Six. That was one of like the highlights of my year when that show came out. So because of that reason, I definitely want to dive more into her backlist. I think I own all of her backlist books, but I just have yet to read them. This one is going to be at the top of my list because it's the one I'm most interested in, but honestly I'd be happy if I got to any of her books. The next romance author that is going to be new to me that I'm very excited to read from is Lynn Painter, Better Than the Movies. This author kind of came out of left field for me. I'd never heard of her before, and maybe that's because she tends to write young adult romance, which is definitely not my cup of tea. She's a little bit more mature in her writing, and her books are just adorable and sweet and wholesome and cute, and that's what I love in a romance. Sometimes you just want like a light, fluffy book. I also own one other of her books at this point, so it's definitely time that I see if she's an author I'm gonna like. Next, I have The Minuscule Mansion of Myra Malone. This is a book that I was very excited for, but then unfortunately no one was talking about it, and I've kind of lost interest a little bit, but I'm hoping it could be like a diamond in the rough. The only thing I know about this book is our main character has a YouTube channel where she creates like these tiny homes, and there is another place across the universe where we follow another character who I think says one of her homes is an exact replica of like his home or her home. I don't really know. I just know that this is a romantic, heartfelt, more contemporary magical realism story. It sounds like it's a book that could possibly make me cry, which I am totally here for, and I have heard really great things about this author. So I'm hoping, like I said, that this could be like a hidden gem that ends up being a big 5 stars for me. I also just want to break the cycle of being really excited for these books and then never reading them. Like, I still want to be excited about this, and I'm still going to try my hardest to get it read next year. Next, I have The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. This one has been on my radar for forever. I don't even know when this first came to Book of the Month, but I have still been itching to get to this one. It still has piqued my interest. A highly imaginative thriller about a young woman who discovers that a strange map in her deceased father's belongings holds an incredible deadly secret, one one that will lead her on an extraordinary adventure into the truth about her family's dark history. Honestly, I thought this was a little bit more like magical realism, but that's not the vibe that I'm getting from this book. But this one just has incredible reviews. People continue to talk about this book, and honestly, I love the cover. I feel like a dark mystery is just right up my alley, and it says thriller, so that makes me even more intrigued. Next, I have a more dystopian kind of sci-fi-ish book that I've really been craving to read for a long time now, and I don't know why it's taken me so long. That is The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. I think this may have won a Goodreads Choice Award last year. I could be completely wrong about that, so please don't quote me. But this concept sounds so unique and very thought-provoking because apparently people get a knock on their door and there's a wooden box on their step that holds their fate, which is the number of years that they have left to live. That sounds terrifying to me. I do not want to know how many years I have left to live, but I feel like that premise is going to make for a very intriguing story. I feel like it's going to make for a very heartbreaking story. There's a bigger cast of characters in this book, which also intrigues me because I really love dual point of view or multiple perspectives, especially if we're following different people. That gives me more of a chance to get invested in other people's lives. So this one I am very highly anticipating. The next thriller I have is The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. You guys know my love for Sally Hepworth and her books. I love her as a human being, but unfortunately The Soulmate was not really my favorite, and this is the last mystery thriller I have to read by her. So because I'm a completionist, I want to read this book next year. I'm also very interested to see where it's gonna fall within her other books that I've read. I've heard this one isn't everyone's favorite. They're kind of about it, but I'm really hoping that maybe I'm in the minority and I really do end up loving this. Next, I have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I have seen this author's name everywhere, non-stop, all year long. I've heard that this is a very like popcorn thriller, very bingeable, but I've also heard it doesn't have like a groundbreaking twist or plot or anything, so I don't know what I'm gonna think about this one, but I have high hopes for it. We're gonna put it on this list. I need to finally read it because I want to know what the hype is surrounding this author. My knowledge of this is the fact that I know our main character is a housemaid, so I'm going completely blind into this, and I feel like that's the best way to go into any mystery thriller. The same rule applies to What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. Not only do I love and adore this author, she's actually coming out with another mystery thriller next year, so that just means I need to hurry up and read this one. I'm going into this completely blind though. I know nothing about it. I thought it was about two girls that went missing, but I have no clue. I'm probably just pulling that out of thin air. So that being said, I'm very stoked to get to this one, but I really don't know what I'm getting into. But I do know that Kate Alice Marshall writes some really creepy, messed up things. Rules for Vanishing still stands as one of the craziest, scariest books I've ever read, so I'm hoping that she includes a little bit of those spooky elements in her thrillers. I feel like that would really be the icing on the cake. Next, we are going to be diving into our fantasy books, which you already know is a huge majority of this list. I do really try to read a variety of things, but honestly, I keep coming back to fantasy. There's nothing like escaping into a brand new world. So for that reason, there are plenty of fantasy books on this list, but I think only a couple came out this year. You're definitely going to see a lot of backlist. There's definitely a trend here in this video, but I have just had way too many fantasy books sitting on my shelves for way too long, and I still hear about them, and I've still heard great things about them. So I am going to be keeping them, and I am going to be trying to read them. I am going to be starting us with none other than Rebecca Ross. I have two of her books here, and I read Divine Rivals and absolutely fell in love with that book. So I did end up with two of her other books, but I'm not complaining because they were so kindly given to me. The only thing I know about this one is our main character has a sister who's being wrongly accused of murder, so she's going on this wild adventure to save her, and this one is about a girl who can step into other people's dreams, which sounds absolutely wild to me. Both of these are standalone, both of these have the potential to be such an amazing read for me. We love Rebecca Ross around here, and I know I'm not going to be disappointed by these. The next book I have read from this author before, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't the biggest fan, so this is like her second chance for me to fall in love with her stories because I really want to get there. That is Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. I follow her on Instagram. I love her vibe. I love that this is like a coastal witchy story. I feel like this is one that I should love. Maybe just something about her other books just weren't calling to me at the time, but I'm hoping that I will really be in the mood when I finally pick this one up. This is another standalone fantasy book, as are the rest of these, so if you're looking for any standalone fantasy books, here's your recommendations. This one I'm hoping and praying that I fall in love with. The next book I have is by Alexi Harrow. I actually got this book as an ARC and I've held on to it since 2020 and I still haven't read it, but because I recently read Starling House and absolutely fell in love with that book, I must read this book. I've also been falling in love with more historical fantasy recently. I feel like that is kind of a new subgenre of fantasy that we don't see a lot. A tale of women's battle for equality, of fairy tales twisted into wonderfully witchy spells, and history reimagined. A great pleasure to read. All of that sounds great to me. I know there's 3 sisters. This is around the Salem witch trials, and I'm just really excited to see what Alex does with this story. Another author that quickly became one of my favorites this year is Ava Reed, and thankfully she has a couple adult fantasy backlist books for me to pick up. The first one I think I'm gonna pick up is Juniper and Thorn. This one is like a dark gothic retelling of the juniper tree, a gruesome curse, a city in upheaval, a monster with unquenchable appetites. Marlichen and her 2 sisters live with their wizard father in a city shifting from magic to industry. If this is as intriguing and atmospheric as A Study in Drowning was, this is definitely going to be a 5 stars from me. I feel like that's going to be my mantra going into the new year, is that I hope all of these books are going to be a big 5 stars for me. But in all honesty, I have never read anything like Ava Reed before. The uniqueness of the way she bends genres together of mythology, but fantasy, but romance, but academic, like I have never seen anything like that before, and I know that this one is going to be no different. Next, I have the gorgeous book The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones. The Bone Houses I read, I believe in 2020, absolutely blew my mind how much I loved it because I couldn't believe no one, absolutely no one, has ever talked about this author. I don't know why. More people need to read from this author, and I honestly just dropped the ball with this one, but when I reread the synopsis not long ago, I was like, sign me up, because this book takes place in Wales and there's merpeople, there's mermaids, like there's so much mythology weaved into this story. Even though I've never personally visited there, Wales is near and dear to my heart because that's where my grandma was from. I just need more books like this. First of all, we need more mermaid books in general. Second of all, this atmosphere I can already tell is going to be 5 stars in and of itself. Next, we have Bookshops and Bone Dust. No surprise here. I would not shut up about Legends and Lattes last year, and I'm honestly going to be a little bit upset with myself if I don't read this before 2024, but in case I don't, this is obviously going to be on this list. I've never read a cozy fantasy, or didn't really know what that meant until I was introduced to this series. I just loved the vibes and the coffee shop and the bakery and the characters, and something that you really don't have to keep up with. It's so much fun. You can still escape into a different world without it being super political. So I'm definitely excited to dive more into this genre of cozy fantasy in the new year. Next, I have Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I'm still upset that I didn't make this book a priority before June Farrow came out. I just know this one is going to be 5 stars for me, and if I would just read it, I feel like I would absolutely fall in love with it. I've had a not so great track record with Adrienne Young, but I feel like this could be a top favorite of all time for me. This one has magic, murder, and a forbidden love. All 3 things that I love. I love her atmosphere. She tends to have a little bit slower of a pace with her writing, but I don't even care. Her storytelling is phenomenal, and this one is going to be so good. Now, these next 2 books I'm a little bit scared of because I don't have a great track record with either of these authors. authors. I actually DNF'd Atlas 6 earlier this year, and I don't know if I'm ever going to come back to it, but I do own Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I feel like this could be a great one for spooky season, but I also feel like because her writing is so dense that it would be a really good book to read in the winter months. I think the issue, which isn't really even an issue that I have with her, is her writing is a lot more pretentious. She's very character driven and less on the world building and the magic, and so it's just something that I have to acclimate to, which is not a bad thing. But when there's nothing really happening in the story, that's when I really get discouraged. So I'm really hoping this one has more plot to it, just some things that progress the story more quickly than the Atlas 6, because I was liking that book, but I wasn't loving it. So here's to hoping that I actually really love this one. And the next book that I honestly can't believe I'm actually going to try to read, because I was very upset that I did not like Mistborn, is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Everyone keeps telling me this is like Princess Bride with pirates. It's a little bit more cozy, it's lower stakes, and I'm hoping that's what I need from Brandon Sanderson, because when we were thrown into Mistborn, we were expected to know about all these metals and the steampunk world and all the politics, and I just could not picture the world. I love that he wrote this book for his wife and he wasn't planning on publishing it, but she loved it so much that she thought he should. Everything about the synopsis and this book and how beautiful it is really screams Olivia to me, so I'm hoping and praying that this book does something for me, because I do not want this to be the last Brandon Sanderson book I read. These next 6 books are fantasy books by authors I have not read before, but I'm very intrigued by. These other ones were ones that I'd read from the author before, but these are going to be brand new authors for me, and I'm hoping and praying that all of them end up being 5 stars. Starting us with The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. This book I had never been more excited for. I don't know if it's just because everybody was comparing it to Gilmore Girls, which I quickly learned not to do because people were saying it's nothing like Gilmore Girls, but I was just getting all those cozy fantasy vibes from this cover, and I think that's what this is, but I also know it's a very sad story and there's even some triggers in here. I'm still very intrigued and I still really want to read this, especially because I was so excited about it. I do still have high hopes for this story because it just seems so whimsical and fantastical, and I feel like it could really be something that I need in a specific time of my life, and hopefully I pick it up at the right time. Even though I've heard this is sad, sometimes you just need a sad story in your life. Next, I have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I am so upset I didn't get to this past year. This is one book that kept getting bumped. This one has the found family trope. It's witchy, it's sweet, it's cozy. There are all things in this I know I'm gonna love. So I'm really hoping that I love this book, especially for my friend Rachel, because this is like her favorite book of all time. I also have Naomi Novik's Uprooted. This has been on so many TBRs and so many want to read lists. I've heard nothing but great things about this one and Spinning Silver. The synopsis is very vague about this book, but it does give kind of like those dark fairy tale vibes, and I did see the word dragon on the back. So if there's dragons of any kind in this, I'm definitely on board. I also have another pretty hyped backlist book that people were talking about. Was it earlier this year or the year before? At this point, I can't even remember when books come out. I read so many a year, I just lose track. But I have Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. This one was getting a lot of good hype. I just know our main character inherits like this enchanted house. He wasn't planning to keep it, but then some crazy stuff starts happening. I want to say the different rooms have something to do with people's life. Like when you go into the room, sometimes there's trauma. You go into another room, sometimes there's like a happy memory or something. This one also has a map of the first and second floor, which also intrigues me. So yeah, I'm hoping to possibly add this to my January TBR. I also have The Last Heir to Blackwood Library. Again, another book I was super stoked for. Haven't heard a lot about, but I'm still really excited to read it. This one takes place in a post-World War I England where a young woman inherits a mysterious library and must untangle its powerful secrets. Like I said, I'm getting more into the historical fantasy kind of subgenre here. I love a magical library. I think this is such a stunning book, and I do know Hester Fox has written some other great books that some some of my close friends have loved, so I feel like she has the potential to possibly be another favorite fantasy author. Last but definitely not least, another book I've been hearing phenomenal things about is Inkblood Sister Scribe. This cover is stunning. When I first picked this up from Book of the Month, I didn't even care what it was about because I loved the cover so much, but the inside was even more convincing. It's about two estranged half-sisters tasked with guarding their family's library of magical books must work together to unravel a deadly secret at the heart of their collection, a tale of familial loyalty and betrayal in the pursuit of magic and power. First of all, if there's ever sisters in a story that immediately sets off something in my brain to where I have some type of connection with it because I have three sisters of my own, but I mean there's a library and there's magical books and there's a secret, and I love books that have like a generational type of curse where one of these siblings or one of the characters is trying to break the curse and really figure out what's going on. So this one sounds super mysterious but also super amazing. Well friends, that is the end of my 24 book list. We definitely have a good variety here of a lot of backlist books, but also books that I'm just still really excited to read. I had so much fun tearing my bookshelves apart, as you could probably tell. Just ignore the fact that they're probably a huge mess right now, but I had so much fun shopping my shelves. It felt like I was going book shopping, and I didn't realize that I already owned so many amazing books, so I have a feeling that this next year is going to be the year of amazing 5-star fantasy books, and I'm hoping that comes true. Before you leave this video, definitely let me know a few books that are at the top of your priority list going into next year. Maybe there's a couple you didn't get to this year that you are like, I have to read these going into next year. I also just feel like this past year was a year that I found some new favorite authors, and that just expanded my TBR even more, and honestly I can't complain about it if it's gonna give me more 5-star reads. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video.